Alright, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. I am back, and it is time for the final iteration of our fun little AlphaStar experiment. So, today we are going to be doing the last AlphaStar mystery video. I know there's been some mixed thoughts on these ones, but it's still something that I think was fun to do. And since I prepped, or had prepped by nice username, number of replays that had the usernames removed and stuff, I thought, yeah, you know what? This will be fun to do the final one here, in which we're going to be trying to figure out which race, or which player, in this case, is going to be AlphaStar, or one of them that isn't actually a player, if that makes any sense. So we'll just keep an eye on maybe some telltale signs of who's basically playing a little bit weird, too weird, not weird enough. And yeah, so you guys can take a guess, leave it in the comments of who you think AlphaStar is. Of course, doing these commentaries is always hard because I know who AlphaStar is, and so that's basically made it, like, impossible for me to actually commentate without really thinking about every word I say. Even then, in one or two of the videos, I made a mistake. But, you know, it's all good fun watching for the sake of the mystery. As, yeah. So, we've got ourselves a TERRAN versus Zerg. I guess I should actually talk about the matchup for this. We already have an is this CC off location? Like, is this slightly to the right or something? Okay. Alright, that's an interesting start, I guess, from the TERRAN player. All the while the Zerg player is just going for 3 hatches. Already has the pool done. Taken the location that's a little bit more to the south, which isn't the most popular base on this map. So some weird stuff going on with the bases for both of these players. Has the one command center. I'm pretty sure that's too far to the left, or am I just seeing things? That's like way too far to the left. I always second guess myself in these situations. All the while the TERRAN has their Reaper is going to be attacking these Lings, going to be getting repelled. The Ling's doing their best. The Reaper is microing pretty darn well. Killing off 2 of the Lings. Oh, it might go down. Gotta be careful. Oh, the Reaper actually does go down. Miss micro from the TERRAN player. Although all the Zerg just pumping out drones now, making queens. Doesn't have to worry about that pesky Reaper. Back at home, the TERRAN just going for a couple of Marines, getting up the factory after the expansion. And that, like, is this too far to the left? Like, it's like that far? Yeah, that's definitely too far to the left. I'm not crazy. I may be crazy, but, like, I'm not crazy this time, I don't think. So, before things get too much further into the game, we'll take a look. The Zerg is making 6 Zerglings, so let's try and hit 6 likes on this video, ladies and gentlemen, for the final AlphaStar mystery. If you enjoyed these, it's reason to celebrate the final one that we're doing one more. If you didn't like them, then leave a like, because it's the last one. So, there you go. Of course, for those of you that want to know what race is the human player, or what race is AlphaStar, just check the description. I should remember to include it there. We have a lair already on the way for the Zerg. Stim pack on the way for the TERRAN. So that's a bit interesting. Looks like it's going to be a through racks play behind 3 CC from the TERRAN. And I don't know. Is this CC off location? Like, I think it is. I think it is. Like, look at that. Like, the hatch is way closer than that is. Okay. So that's interesting. That is interesting to note. It's hard to tell, though. It's hard to tell. Overlord just hanging above for the Zerg, just being like, hey, yo, you build Marines? Well, I'm building Zerglings. I finished up my lair. Things are going alright over here in Zergtown. The TERRAN has double eBays on the way. Factory finished up. No sign of a starport just yet, which is interesting. 1-1 upgrades on the way before that. Triple gas is on the way here for the Zerg. So we'll see what all that gas is going to be used for. We could potentially see a Spire play here. It is going to be a Spire from the Zerg. That's interesting. Starport's on the way for the Terran. And the couple of Hellions that the Terran made just made 2, not actually committing to a large amount like most Terrans do. But, oh, take a look at this. The Ling's going to be crossing the map here for the Zerg. They could potentially get something done. There's not that many Marines at the front. Is the Zerg going to take this engagement? I mean, there's not that many Marines. The Lings are actually just going to go for it. This isn't a full wall for the Terran. A lot more Marines come down to the bottom to help out. However, this still seems to be a pretty good trade for the Zerg. The Terran's actually going to be in a very big spot of bother. The couple of Hellions coming back will actually allow this to be cleaned up, though. So what was a very dangerous situation was narrowly avoided. If the Terran, or really any race, ever gets overrun by Zerglings, it just does not work out well for you. It's just generally considered a bad time having a bunch of Zerglings in your base, so we do take a look, though. The Zerg committed to that many Lings is just rebuilding them, getting up a Spire. Couple of 1-1 upgrades on the way. Later than the Terran's 1-1 upgrades, though. Okay, so we take a look here. Queen about to pop on out here. Another queen being produced. Creep being spread. The couple of Hellions are moving out on the map once again. Just running around doing their thing while the Zerg is taking a 4th base. These Hellions gonna set their sights on these drones, gonna start barbecuing them up. The Lings will pursue, and those 2 Hellions will die. They got a couple of drones, though, so not a bad trade out for the Terran player, as the Hellions are pretty useless past this point in the game. I mean, they can always get run-bys, but that's where their main value goes for. The Terran still hasn't completed their wall off, and are simply just making a lot of Marines off of 4 racks, but throwing up another couple racks there. Saturated up at the 3rd base. The worker count's actually surprisingly equal this game, but now this is where it's going to get interesting. The Mutalisk are about to pop out here for the Zerg player. Meanwhile, the Terran player is just going to be going for the extra barracks, producing lots of bio, and I presume is going to try and push at some point. Medivacs out for the Terran could lead to potential drops here, although while the Zerg is getting out centrifugal hooks. Second factory on the way for the Terran player. Well, the Zerg is making more mutas. Banelings are being produced here by the Zerg. Kairos Junction is a map which it can be pretty straightforward for attacks. I mean, it's not that far from ramp to ramp here on this map, so getting up creep, getting up Banelings in order to repel a attack that's probably going to be coming from the Terran at some point is important for the Zerg to do in a timely manner. These Banes roll right by those Marines and just annihilate them there. So the Banelings crash into those 4 unlucky Marines stationed down to the south. I guess poor spotters there. Now, though, I mean, we take a look. The Zerg has got the mutas out. They're going to start looking for some damage. In come these Lings, in come these Banes. The Banes might actually just be looking for a cheeky connection on the Marines. The Zerg wants to go for it. He's like, oh, look at all those clumped up Marines. Give them to me. However, attacking on creep, or off creep, pardon me, is a little bit risky. The mutas, all the while, just going to be chasing away these SCVs. The Lings come in. Oh, the SCVs are transferred, but the Banes don't properly chase them in. I think those Banes could have rolled in. Instead, the Zerg is just going to take a fight, crashes right on into all of those Marines. This is going to be a bad spot here for the Terran. The Marines are getting split. The Medivac supporting the Marines, the few that remain, to try and stand at the end, and it looks like the Terran will stay alive. Once again, the Zerg comes close to kind of just pulling a cheeky one on the Terran. Terran shoots their own SCV there, as the last muta is getting picked off. 3-3 is about to, or is starting up for the Terran. 2-2 starting up for the Zerg, so a significant upgrade lead for the Terran. Meanwhile, double Thors are on the way as a reaction to these Mutalisk, which isn't bad at all for the Terran. The Zerg, though, behind this at 70 drones, making 32 Banelings at a time. This is where the Zerg economy becomes scary. That was only a handful of Banelings compared to this many. And so we could see just another big Bane wave roll into a ton of Marines here. The Thors are going to have to tank as well as they can. The Terran's also making a siege tank here. Some form of AoE is good, but oh no! The Terran pulling, who was it? I want to say like a Jaedong, maybe, that had like a ton of units caught in their main base in a critical match. So that was unfortunate for him at the time. But oh, take a look at this. Baneling's gonna be rolling on in mass. The Thor is standing tall, but oh my gosh, this is just so many Banelings rolling forward for the Zerg. And these SCVs are gonna be in a spot of bother. They're crashing into some of the SCVs. The rest are transferring. They just get annihilated. Oh, this is bad news. The bunker is not going to stand it. It seems that there's simply too much Zerg. And the Terran, oh my gosh, the Terran has got so many units caught in their main base. This is disastrous. If the Terran had all these siege tanks, all these Thors to help out, they'd be sitting pretty, but it's just not happening. Now the third is potentially going to go down here. All the while the Zerg just making more mutas, getting up an infestation pit, more hatcheries on the way. Looks like the Terran has got out his Marines. Everything else is still trapped in the main base. He lifted up the one building, but it didn't actually free up these units because the Thor is simply too thick. Looks like the Terran is killing off one add-on there. But that's not what he needs to be free. That is not the solution to the problem of these caught Thors, of these caught siege tanks. This is disastrous for the Terran. Now, this third command center is burning. The fourth command center is going to relocate to where the third was, but the Terran is still in a very tough spot here. Another siege tank popped out, but that is not what the Terran player needed. Oh my gosh, this is just disastrous for the Terran. Oh, so disastrous. These siege tanks all caught up, all clumping up. Another add-on is going to be getting killed. The building lifts off. It's... Okay, now the starport's under fire. This will free the units, I think. Okay, there we go. All these tanks, all these Thors, now going to be getting freed, I think. I think that's it. I think they're going to be let out as the starport gets killed. Okay, that's some pretty big derp in there. Ladies and gentlemen, place your bets as to who you think the AI is. This is unfortunate for the Terran, as the Banelings, as the mutas are going to roll on in, they're going to start hitting these SCVs. And, oh yeah, that is a dead command center. Fortunately for the Terran, they built up another, but that is just not the same as having your original command center alive. Army supply is actually still in the lead for the Terran. 3-3 is finished up for the Terran. All these tanks and Thors are still caught here for the Terran. You better be moving these. There we go. Now they're going to move. And the Terran could potentially just go for one big old push with all these Thors, with these Hellbats that are now being made, interestingly enough. Hellbats are always considered good against Zerg, but still rarely made. So many Lings and Banes are here for the Zerg, just going to be rolling on up. Might want to change his mind, and he does back out, pulling away with all these Banelings, which is just an absurd amount. 42 Banelings. These Marines, they gotta run, but the Banes are hitting them in mass. Oh my gosh, it's a massacre. This is a disaster. The mutas are gonna be flying over, picking off the siege tank there. The Thor remains, a couple of units remain for the Terran, so it looks like the Terran will actually stay alive in this engagement, will stay ahead in supply, but his army did not trade efficiently there. The Banes just, oh my gosh, just annihilated all those Marines. Now, the main base has floated over for the Terran towards the fourth base location, so keeping a semblance of an economy going. The Terran has siege tanks, has Thors, Marines. There still may be potential for a nice attack from the Terran, and it looks like the Terran is going to be crossing the map here, heading towards the third of the Zerg, all the while the Zerg is pushing far forward, so we could head into a bit of a base trade situation, but the Planetary, generally pretty good in a base trade situation. The tanks are on the high ground sieged up for the Terran. It looks like the Zerg is coming on in to punish this attack, to shut it down, hopefully, and I think that's well within the realm of possibility, because there simply isn't that much of a buffer, that much bio to support these siege tanks. However, still seems like a pretty okay trade for the Terran, as the Terran is pushing on in now. The Marine's going to be setting to work. The hatchery is gone. The mutas and Banes are coming in to try and shut this push down. It looks like they will be able to, but still a pretty good trade, I feel, for the Terran getting that base. The Medivacs are going to want to evacuate themselves before the mutas pick them all off. A boost is being used. Looks like most of them will escape as long as they keep running. They got to keep running. Reinforcements are out for the Terran. Mainly just Marines. They stim. They're going to come down to try and repel these mutas, repel these Lings. However, it is a lot of mutas and Lings, so it's going to be a tall order for these boys. If they had the Medivac support, I'd say maybe, but the Medivacs are now gone. A Thor is coming down to help. A lot of SCVs have died, though. The mutas are just going to be picking off everything else. So, all in all, it seems like a net positive for the Zerg. However, I mean, maybe the Terran, who's still technically up on army supply, can push once more. But the Zerg is just double expanding once again, which is good to see. Ultras are now on the way, and this could spell disaster for the Terran. I mean, being ahead on supply is okay, but being equal on supply, which they are now pretty much, against Ultras is not what you want as the Terran. So the Zerg seems to be doing a pretty good job transitioning here, getting up all the upgrades, making more Banelings. The handful of Mutas aren't doing too much, honestly, at this point. But once the 4 Ultras are out, I think it's gonna be pretty darn good here for the Zerg player. Thors and tanks are alright versus Ultras. The problem is when there's a ton of Lings that come in to support them, and in this case there's 70 Lings being made at a time here for the Zerg player. Banelings being made as well. And okay, let's take a look here. Chitinous plating is about to finish on up here for the Zerg. All the while, the Zerg player is just doing pretty darn good, whereas the Terran is having a tough go. Technically, the Terran is still mining from 2 fresh bases, but the PF is about to run out. So 2 not fresh bases. Oh, all of a sudden in comes the Zerg. This could potentially be the final push. The Thors and Ultras are going to tank as well as they can. The Marines are going to split. It looks like that there's enough on this ramp to repel the Zerg, but I think the Zerg simply just is too great a production at this point for the Terran to contend with. The Thor production is pretty good for the Terran. Despite the Thor production, it's going to be pretty darn tough here for the Terran to make anything happen. I mean, the Thors are good against the Banelings, but with the Ultras, with the Lings, the Terran army just gets broken into chunks and devoured. All of a sudden, in comes the Zerg again with a nice surround. The Marines are going to stim. Banelings are rolling forward. The Thors are tanking as well as they can, but there really isn't enough AoE here for the Terran. I mean, the fight went alright for the Terran. Looks like one of these Ultras has been sectioned off. Could potentially be picked off, but there's simply 2 more Ultras coming on in. And I think that's got to be the end for the Terran player here, as the Zerg is just going to push on in. It's going to be a final stand for the Terran. Maybe he can hold on. I don't think I'm seeing it. The Ultras are kind of getting bogged up here a little bit, but they're just running rampant. More and more Zerg is going to be streaming on in here. The Thors are doing everything they can to clean up these units. The PF standing strong still. So, I mean, the Terran is still alive. However, he is half the supply of the Zerg. 5 Ultras are on the way here for the Zerg. That should be more than enough to round out this game. A Liberator's on the way. Meanwhile, this base is going to float on over. The Terran is building another command center, so playing it out, not getting discouraged, just going to keep giving it the good old college try. More siege tanks are on the way, so that's alright. I mean, siege tanks are pretty good versus Ultras in a high enough count. However, the problem is I'm not sure the Terran's going to reach a high enough count. More Banelings being made. The Ultras can try and do what they want. There's technically no anti-air for the Zerg at the minute, so the Liberator is actually a very good choice for the Terran. In comes the Zerg, though. These Marines and Marauders are going to have to run for their life. Looks like the Zerg does hesitate once again, though. The Terran's staying alive in this game. The problem is, though, there's now Corruptors on the way. There's a Greater Spire that's about to finish up for the Zerg, and that is not good for a Terran who's just pretty much staying back at home, praying to survive. The Bio-Stims, the Banelings have been taken care of. However, the Ultras are spilling forward and are making mincemeat of the Terran army, and that is absolutely a dead Terran at this point in the game. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to leave a like on this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe, as I put out StarCraft 2 content every single day. It's pretty rare that I miss a day these days. And join the Discord. Feel free to submit a replay in that replay section I just added. Big thanks to those of you that support the channel via the memberships. And for those of you wondering who AlphaStar was, you know who it is. It's the Terran, without a doubt. As this was just some classic AlphaStar trying Terran game. The Zerg went for the Spire, the CC was off location. All a bunch of tells that really differentiated these players. So if you watch a lot of AlphaStar games, you definitely know this to be the case. Big thanks to everyone, though, for watching this video. I'll see you next time as we wait for AlphaStar to GG. Can't be too long here. CC is lifting off. AlphaStar, say what you like about it, but it never really does quit, does it? The buildings are flying. The Corruptors are attacking the command centers. The Bio is going to micro back the siege tank on the high ground. The Liberator there as well. I mean, AlphaStar is giving it a try. It's just at some point you gotta know when to give up. Meanwhile, the Zerg is just doing all Zerg things, and that's it. GG, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you next time.